I'm not crying, you're crying. Hey guys, welcome to my review / discussion of Sherlock Series 4 Episode 2 titled The Lying Detective. I know this video is probably really late considering there's a new episode like tonight by the time that I upload this video, but as with the last version of this series that I had to do with Sherlock Series 4 Episode number 1, I had to watch this several times in order to feel like I was comfortable enough to talk about it. There's just so much happening in this episode that it took me several rewatches to really feel like I had enough material to really discuss with you and have a lot of theories that I really needed to get together to talk in this video. So let's get started with the first couple of things that I wanted to roll through this video. And as in my last video, I'm putting a massive spoiler warning into effect. There's going to be a lot of things I'm going to be discussing about this episode that in case you have not seen it, I'm going to spoil a lot of stuff because I have a lot of things to get off my chest about it. So you've been warned. There's a massive spoiler warning into effect. Now let's get into the good stuff. So the story of The Lying Detective is that Sherlock and Watson have more or less gone their separate ways. They're both doing their own sort of thing. Sherlock is back to doing drugs, which is definitely never a good thing for him. And Watson is seeing Mary everywhere despite her dying in the last episode. Sherlock is then approached by a woman who's actually the daughter of our main villain in this episode, Culliver Smith, who's played by Toby Jones. Now the rest of the episode is more or less a cat and mouse game as far as who Culliver Smith says he wants to kill. Sherlock has to figure that out based on the interaction that he had with his daughter and a couple other people in like a boardroom. So they have to figure that out, who he wants to kill and why, because he's such a public figure that they can't figure out who he wants to kill or the reason behind it. And it's just a cat and mouse game that of course has to end in dramatic fashion. Now that we pretty much said the whole synopsis, let's get into the really good stuff that we have to talk about this episode. First of all, relating around the big plot twist involving E. E is the woman from the previous episode that John is having an affair with. Not only do we find out her name in this episode is actually Euros. Who is Euros, you ask? Great question. First, let's break down Euros' name. Euros, as they say in the episode, is actually Greek for the east wind. And if you recall from Series 3, episode number 3, I believe, his last vow, Mycroft says this to Sherlock after he's been shot, and he's sort of in shock. He says this to him in his mind palace.
The east wind is coming, Sherlock. It's coming to get you.
So supposedly Euros is another Holmes, in fact the sister of Sherlock and Mycroft. Now this probably has you asking, what about Sherringford? Now that's a great question too, because there's a lot of different speculations and answers that could lead to who Sherringford is, or maybe what Sherringford is. Now there are tons of theories out there on the internet about this episode, who Euros is, and we probably really won't get an answer until the next episode, which hopefully I'll be able to talk about sooner than this episode. But what essentially the theories are is that number one, Sherringford could actually be a place where Euros was being held. Also, it could be Sherringford is her actual first name, Euros being the middle name, or vice versa. It could be Euros Sherringford or Sherringford Euros Holmes. Either way could work, but there is a big theory out there that still lets my whole Tom Hiddleston theory sort of still be alive and well. Now the other theory that I have in relation to the Tom Hiddleston possibly still being in this episode, series, whatever you want to call it, being Sherringford, is that if you recall on Mycroft's desk, he pulls away like Lady Smallwood's card to take with him, and it says call Sherringford on it. Now, why would Mycroft have to call Sherringford if Euros is either on the loose or isn't where she's supposed to be? Maybe, if very possibly, maybe slightly, there's actually a fourth Holmes, that Sherlock actually has a twin brother, mainly because the day that he has to call Sherringford is the same exact day we find out is Sherlock's birthday. Now I can hear you starting to type in the comment section down below, which I would love to hear from you later, but give me 1 second out on this theory, because there is some actual reasoning to it that makes sense and allows it to be possible. Now the first reason being that this actually could be plausible is something that Sherlock has said both in the Abominable Bride as well as the Six Thatchers, and that it's never twins. Now this could be misleading, it could be just it's never twins, but what if there was an actual twin? They've said it twice now in this series that it's not twins. What if they're trying to make you believe it's not twins only to reveal it was twins the entire time? The second argument for this is what Sherlock says in this episode, The Lying Detective. Towards the end, when Toby Jones says, oh, we found, 3 possible microphones, whatever, and then Sherlock says they always stop looking after 3. Now, because he had that 4th hidden microphone in John's cane, what if there is an actual 4th Holmes that is Sherringford, not Euros? This again holds up very slightly, but it still could mean that Tom Hiddleston will end up being Sherringford, the 4th Holmes brother, or actually 3rd Holmes brother, sibling, whatever you want to say. But it still rather holds nicely, and I think it could still be plausible. But that's the end of my theory section on that. Another thing that I wanted to discuss about the episode was some things that was said that, could be sort of misconstrued, but it's something that's definitely very interesting, and that is the phrase, "it is what it is." This is mainly said towards the end of this episode, both by John and by Sherlock. But what's the significance of this, you ask? Well, Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss don't exactly do things just for the novelty. They kind of like to leave things hidden throughout, and they know they do it on purpose. It's not by accident that this phrase happened to slip in, or what it means. But essentially what it is that phrase was not originally, but it was most famously said by a man by the name of John Locke. Now, if all of you Sherlock fans out there are familiar with it, there is a ship name of John and Sherlock called John Locke, in which the two are together either romantically or sexually. Fans have wanted this in the series for quite some time, still speculating about it, but I don't think it's gonna happen. I think they just kind of stuck it in there as a way of saying, you got your John Locke that you wanted, but maybe it wasn't necessarily in the way that the fans had wanted it in a romantic relationship. The other thing that I quickly wanted to touch on, again, revolves around Euros. Now, when Euros does sort of reveal herself to John and is taking off like the wig, shows the daisy behind her ear, like moves her hair, and then like takes the contact lens out of her eye, was I the only person that thought, holy shit, this could maybe be Moriarty the whole time? Like Moriarty disguised himself as a woman in order to get into this relationship and like seed himself in there, and I just thought for a minute it could be. Thankfully it was not. But I'm not going to put it past the show that she was in fact working with Moriarty, seeing as how she sort of lured Sherlock in with that. Maybe some other things happened in their past. I'm not sure, but I can see how Euros could have been working with Moriarty at some point. So guys, that is essentially all that I wanted to talk about Sherlock Series 4, Episode 2, The Lying Detective. I know there was a lot of different things in there, but again, I don't really have the time to get into all these fan theories and discussions about it. But please feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below, what you think about these theories, what could possibly happen in the final episode, which will probably be on later tonight, again, by the time this video goes up. But hopefully you enjoyed this video, as well as check out my previous Sherlock Series 4 Episode 1 video about the 6 Thatchers, which you'll see here in a second. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Also, please don't forget to subscribe so you can see the next episode that I'm going to talk about, as well as some other future videos. I'm working really hard on one certain video that I can't wait to put out. So definitely subscribe and hit the little bell to get a notification so you can see that video and be notified when that comes out as well. Guys, thank you again so much for watching. You really are the best, and I'll see you in the next one.